Title: My family said there's no room for your kids every holiday. Until I showed them space. Part 1 of 7 Explosive Hook and Setup, 700-800 words. There's no room for your kids this year, Emily. Maybe next time. That was the message that shattered my family's illusion of love. I stared at the group chat on my phone. Family Holiday 2025 with my mother's name pinned at the top. Under her text, my brother Liam had added a smug thumbs up emoji. My sister Claire sent a heart. And then, silence. No one defended me. Not one word in my favor. I reread it again and again, my heart twisting tighter each time. No room for your kids. As if my children were baggage. As if my family, the people who once crowded around my hospital bed when my twins were born, had decided they were now inconvenient. It used to be different. Growing up, our house overflowed with laughter every December. My mother's kitchen smelled like cinnamon and orange peel, my father played old vinyl records, and we'd all cram into the living room for movies and cocoa. But that was before Dad passed away. Before the house was remodeled modern, cold, and somehow smaller even though it had doubled in size. Before my siblings started treating me like the family charity case because I was a single mother. I worked full-time as a nurse, raised 2 kids on my own, and still made time to show up every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every Easter, dragging in homemade casseroles and presents wrapped with care. But the last few years, things had shifted. First it was, Emily, maybe leave the kids with a sitter this year, we've got so many guests. Then, Emily, the house is full, maybe just stop by for dessert. And finally this year, there's no room for your kids. I sat at my kitchen table, phone buzzing with new messages, pictures of Liam's remodeled guest rooms, Claire's designer outfits, and Mom bragging about her cozy Christmas plans. My twins, Ava and Oliver, sat nearby coloring on the floor, blissfully unaware that their own grandparents had just uninvited them. Oliver looked up. Mommy, are we still going to Grandma's this year? I forced a smile. We'll see, sweetheart. Maybe we'll do something special here. But inside, I was breaking. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that their family didn't want them around for Christmas? That no matter how many times you try to belong, there are people your own blood who'll always find reasons to shut you out? Ava tugged at my sleeve. Can we still give them our gifts? I made Grandma a painting. My chest tightened. Even after being rejected, my daughter still wanted to give. That's when I realized I wasn't angry just for me. I was angry for them. For every child who had been told they didn't fit in someone's perfect little family photo. And anger, when it burns quiet, becomes something powerful. That night, I went through old family photos, Dad holding me on his shoulders, all of us gathered around the same table they now claimed had no room. I remembered his words the last Christmas before he passed. Never let this family forget what love looks like, Em. When they start counting seats, you start making space. Making space. Those 2 words hit me like a thunderclap. If they wanted to say there wasn't room for us, I'd make sure they saw just how much space I could create physically, emotionally, and publicly. The next morning, I called a real estate agent. It was time to finally use the inheritance Dad had quietly left for me, the one no one else knew about. While my siblings flaunted their renovations and vacations, I'd been saving every penny. Waiting for a reason. Now, I had one. Emily, the agent said, flipping through listings, what kind of property are you looking for? I smiled faintly. Something big enough for family gatherings. With plenty of space. Over the next few weeks, I visited properties after my hospital shifts, empty lots, cozy cabins, even a renovated barn. But when I found the old family estate on the outskirts of town, my heart stopped. It had once belonged to my grandparents before Mom sold it years ago to pay off Liam's failed business debt. The place had fallen into disrepair, but its foundation was strong, its land wide and open. I could see it, kids laughing, tables stretching under fairy lights, laughter echoing again like it used to. I made the offer that same day. By Christmas Eve, my mother sent another text. Hope you and the kids are doing okay, Em. Maybe next year will work out. This time, I didn't reply. Instead, I stood in the middle of my new home, staring at the space I had just bought back from their past. The air was cold, but something inside me felt alive again. They had said there was no room for my kids. I whispered into the empty hall, oh, I'll show you space. And that was the moment the revenge began. End of part 1 to be continued. Would you like me to continue with part 2? Rising tension, 700-800 words, where Emily starts transforming the property and planting the seeds of her poetic revenge, turning space into the ultimate family lesson? You said. ChatGPT said. That was part 1 of your viral revenge story based on the title. My family said there's no room for your kids every holiday. Until I showed them space. White heavy check mark it included. A shocking opening line straight from the title. The hero, Emily, a single mom betrayed by her family. The villains her mother and siblings who excluded her kids. The emotional setup and motive for revenge. A suspenseful ending line, oh, I'll show you space. Would you like me to write part 2 rising tension, 700-800 words, next, where Emily begins planning and executing her subtle revenge, slowly revealing how she'll make her family regret those cruel words? You said. Prompt 2 early red flags. Continue the story from part 1. Write part 2 of 700-800 words. Show the first suspicious red flags, favoritism, secret calls, lies, money issues, unfair treatment. Keep the betrayal unclear but build audience doubt about the villain. Highlight the emotional strain on the hero. High voltage sign events must stay consistent with the title setup. ChatGPT said. Title, My family said there's no room for your kids every holiday. Until I showed them space. Part 2 of 7 early red flags, 700-800 words. I used to think family favoritism was just something people exaggerated about online. But when you live it, when you see it wrapped in fake smiles and subtle digs, it stops feeling like drama and starts feeling like a slow bleed. After Dad passed, everything shifted. Mom became different. It was as if my siblings had quietly rewritten the family hierarchy, and I was just expected to fall in line at the bottom. It started with little things. Liam's birthday parties turned into catered events at Mom's house. She'd post pictures with captions like, "So proud of my successful son." Claire got her girls' wine nights with Mom every month, complete with matching dresses and manicured smiles. And me? Whenever I stopped by, Mom's tone changed. She'd eye my worn scrubs, the bags under my eyes from night shifts, and ask, "Still working those long hours, dear? It must be tough for the kids." Translation, you're not doing enough. You're not enough. When Dad was alive, he was the glue. He'd sit next to me during dinner, nudging me with that quiet reassurance whenever Liam bragged about another investment or Claire flaunted her new car. But now, every visit felt like a performance I didn't audition for. A show where I was the extra, not the daughter. The first real red flag appeared a few months before that infamous text Thanksgiving. Mom had promised she'd make room for me and the twins that year. I baked 3 pies, bought matching sweaters for Ava and Oliver, and drove over early to help set up. When I arrived, the driveway was already packed: Liam's new SUV, Claire's boyfriend's truck, and 2 cars I didn't recognize. Inside, laughter filled the house. "Emily." Mom greeted me with that too bright smile. "Oh, you're early. I wish you'd called. I didn't know you were bringing the kids." I froze. "You said of course I was bringing them. It's Thanksgiving." Her face tightened for just a second before she laughed it off. "Oh, honey, don't be so sensitive. We just didn't plan enough seats. But I'll figure something out." She led me to the dining room. Sure enough, 12 seats, all perfectly set. Not one extra chair. Ava tugged my sleeve. "Where do we sit, Mommy?" Before I could answer, Claire chimed in, twirling her wine glass. "There's always room in the kitchen, right?" The table went quiet for a moment, just enough to make me feel the sting. Then everyone laughed like it was a harmless joke. That night, I sat on the edge of the couch while my kids balanced plates on their laps. Mom never even looked our way. But what broke me most wasn't the seating arrangement, it was the whispers. From the hallway, I heard Liam talking to Mom. "She can't keep expecting handouts forever. I told you, it's not our fault she made bad choices." Mom sighed. "I know. But your father's will was so equal. It's not fair that you and Claire work so hard, and she still gets a share." My breath caught. Dad's will. The inheritance. So that's what it was about. They weren't excluding me because there was no room. They were pushing me out slowly, carefully, under the guise of family practicality. The next week, Mom called me. "Emily, dear, about the storage unit your father left you. Liam mentioned it might make sense to consolidate everything. You don't really need that space, do you?" Space. That word again. It burned this time. "I'll keep it," I said flatly. She hesitated, then sighed. "Of course. I was only thinking of convenience." But I heard the disappointment behind her voice. Not guilt. Disappointment. After that call, things got colder. My messages were left on read. Family events became spur of the moment. Even my kids noticed. "Grandma doesn't like us anymore," Oliver whispered one night as I tucked him in. I froze. "Why would you say that?" "She never hugs us goodbye," he said softly. "And she didn't hang our Christmas cards last year." It hit me like a gut punch. I'd been so busy trying to stay polite, trying to earn my family's acceptance, that I hadn't noticed my children learning rejection in real time. One evening, while folding laundry, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, it was the real estate agent, the same one who helped me find my new property. Hi, Miss Turner. Sorry to bother you. I just thought you should know your brother stopped by the office today. He asked a lot of questions about your. You said. Prompt 3 Betrayal revealed. Continue the story from part 2. Write part 3 of 700-800 words. Reveal the main betrayal connected to the title, inheritance theft, cheating, workplace sabotage, etc. Show the hero's reaction, heartbreak, rage, disbelief. Build suspense for how the hero might respond. High voltage sign: the betrayal must match the title's theme. ChatGPT said. Title: My family said there's no room for your kids every holiday. Until I showed them space. Part 3 of 7 Betrayal revealed, 700-800 words. When the real estate agent told me Liam had come asking questions about my new property, something inside me shifted. Not just suspicion, confirmation. He wasn't supposed to know I bought anything. I'd used the inheritance Dad quietly left me, the one nobody in my family even knew existed. I'd kept it separate, secret, safe. Because I'd learned long ago when money entered the family conversation, love left it. But if Liam knew about my purchase, then someone had told him. And that meant someone had gone digging. That night, after the kids fell asleep, I went through old folders on my laptop. I hadn't opened Dad's will documents in years. The file was simple: his assets, the trust accounts, the storage deed, mine. Except this time, when I opened it, it wasn't the same. The documents had changed. My name was still there, but the signature pages were rearranged, the amounts different. Someone had tampered with the digital file. A knot formed in my stomach. I scrolled faster, cross-checking file dates, timestamps. One detail made my blood run cold. Last modified, 11 months ago by Liam Turner. I remember that day vividly now. Liam had offered to help me organize my finances when I was behind on bills after the hospital cut overtime. He'd come over, laptop in hand, charming as always. He said he just wanted to make sure I didn't lose track of Dad's old files. And like a fool, I'd let him. He must have copied, altered, and re-uploaded everything to a shared family drive claiming Dad had left most assets to the estate, conveniently managed by him and Mom. That's why he knew about the property. That's why Mom kept calling it his business. They had stolen my father's legacy right out from under me. I couldn't breathe. My father's voice echoed in my head: never let this family forget what love looks like. Love? What was this? Manipulation wrapped in sentimentality? I grabbed my phone and scrolled to the group chat: Family Holiday 2025. The latest message was a selfie of everyone gathered around the table, smiling, champagne in hand. No seat empty. No kids missing. Just me and my twins deleted from the picture. Mom's caption burned in my eyes. Family is about those who show up. The irony was unbearable. The next morning, I called Mom. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Mom, I began, voice trembling, did you or Liam touch Dad's estate files? A pause. Then a sigh. Oh, Emily. I knew this would come up eventually. You've been so emotional about your father's death, you probably just misremember things. Misremember? I snapped. His signature was moved. The documents were edited on Liam's account. Emily, she said with that condescending calmness that only mothers can weaponize, your father wanted the estate to stay in the family. You weren't in a stable position. It made sense for Liam to handle things. Handle things? You mean take them? Her tone turned icy. Watch your words. You're lucky we even helped manage the taxes. Do you know how much work Liam's done for you? For me. I laughed bitterly. For me? You stole what he left for my children. There was silence, then. Maybe if you'd made better choices, Emily, you'd understand why your father trusted Liam more. Click. She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, tears blurring everything. Years of small humiliations suddenly connected like puzzle pieces. The unreturned calls. The missing invitations. The no-room comments. It wasn't just emotional cruelty, it was deliberate exclusion. They were erasing me, step by step, until I stopped fighting back. And the cruelest part? They had used Dad's love to justify it. I wanted to scream. Instead, I grabbed my car keys and drove. The house I'd bought my space was still empty, dust clinging to the windows, wind whistling through the cracked porch. But for the first time, it felt alive. I walked through every room, touching the walls, whispering to the air, they think they can take everything. Then I stopped in the living room. My father's photo, one I'd kept from the old house, rested on a box. His smile looked steady, proud. I'm not going to let them, I whispered. You built this family on love. I'll rebuild it on truth. In the weeks that followed, I confirmed everything. The lawyer who handled Dad's will had retired, but his assistant, kind and tired, remembered the original terms. Your father wanted equal distribution, she said softly. But your brother came in later with new paperwork. Claimed you'd agreed to let him manage your portion. Agreed? I hadn't even known about it. That was the final proof. They hadn't just stolen from me, they had forged my consent. That night, I didn't cry. I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and stared at the empty space where my father's name used to be replaced by my brother's. And that's when the idea hit me. They wanted space? They wanted to erase my children from holidays, from family, from inheritance? Fine. I'd give them space more than they could ever handle. But this time, I'd be the one controlling the room. I smiled through the tears and whispered to myself. You took what was mine. Now, I'll take what you think is yours. And that's how the revenge began taking shape, not in anger, but in precision. Because I wasn't just planning to expose them. I was going to show them space publicly, painfully, poetically. End of part 3 to be continued. Would you like me to continue with part 4, planning the revenge, 700-800 words, where Emily begins quietly setting up her trap using her new property, her father's memory, and the family's own vanity to turn their betrayal into their downfall? You said. Prompt 4, turning point, inner strength. Continue the story from part 3. Write part 4 of 700-800 words. Show the hero shifting from hurt to determined. Add a powerful realization or trigger moment where the hero decides to fight back. Make the transformation emotional and natural. High voltage sign must stay true to the betrayal in the title. ChatGPT said. Title: My family said there's no room for your kids every holiday. Until I showed them space. Part 4 of 7, turning point, inner strength. 700-800 words. The night after discovering the truth, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the floor of my half-renovated living room, surrounded by unopened boxes and silence thick enough to choke on. The house was cold, still, hollow, just like I felt. They had taken everything. My father's inheritance. My children's future. The family name that once meant love. I stared at my phone. A dozen unsent messages glared back at me. Angry words, half-written and deleted again and again. What was the point? No text could cut as deep as what they'd done. But then, as the wind howled outside, I noticed something Ava's painting. It had been taped to one of the boxes. A crooked Christmas tree under a sky full of stars, drawn with clumsy but determined strokes. In the corner, she'd written. Grandpa's house in heaven where there's room for everyone. Room. That word again. I pressed the paper to my chest, and something inside me broke, but not in the same way it had before. This time, it wasn't grief. It was resolve. For years, I had let them define what family meant. I had accepted scraps of affection, crumbs of inclusion, half-hearted apologies that came too late and meant too little. I had begged for a seat at their table. But not anymore. I realized that night, I didn't need to sit at their table. I could build my own, and this time, there would be room for everyone who deserved it. The next morning, I woke up different. I packed lunches for the twins, dropped them at school, then drove straight to the hardware store. I bought paint, nails, lumber, fairy lights, the kind that make old places glow like magic. The cashier smiled. Big project? Yeah, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. I'm building something important. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into the work. By day, I was still the nurse who smiled through exhaustion. By night, I became something else, an architect of my own revenge, brick by brick. I scrubbed the floors until they gleamed, repainted the walls, and repaired every broken step. I worked until my hands blistered and my muscles ached. Sometimes, I'd pause and picture my family's faces, the smug glances, the whispers, the way they said no room as if I were some stray cat they couldn't be bothered to feed. Every brush stroke was a promise. You will see what real space looks like. One evening, as I was cleaning out the attic, I found something I hadn't seen in years: Dad's old wooden chest. Inside were dusty photo albums, holiday cards, and a worn-out tape recorder. Curious, I pressed play. Static crackled, then his voice filled the air. If you're hearing this, I hope it's because you're sitting together. I hope this house is still full of love. I froze. The recording continued. Emily, my sweet girl. You always had the biggest heart. Don't let them make you small. This family has room for everyone, but it starts with you reminding them what space really means. Tears blurred my vision. It felt like he was right there beside me, steady, warm, unwavering. That was my turning point. All the hurt, the shame, the rejection, it didn't vanish, but it transformed. It became fuel. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. Legacy. Dignity. The next morning, I started documenting everything. I gathered the original files from the lawyer's office, copies of emails, transaction records, proof of what they'd done. I even saved the voicemail Mom accidentally left on my phone months ago, saying, "Liam, make sure she never finds out about the trust transfer. She'll make a scene." It wasn't just betrayal. It was conspiracy. I didn't plan to confront them yet. No, this kind of betrayal deserved a stage. And I was going to build it. Meanwhile, the renovations continued. The once crumbling property began to transform into something breathtaking. A long wooden table stretching across the lawn, soft lights twinkling above, space enough for every person who'd ever been made to feel small. Neighbors started noticing. A few offered to help. "Looks like you're building a community center," one joked. "Something like that," I smiled. But deep down, I was building more than a space. I was building a reckoning. One night, Ava asked, "Mommy, are we going to Grandma's next Christmas?" I paused. "No, sweetheart. We're doing something different this year." She frowned. "Will they come here?" I smiled a slow, knowing smile. "Oh, they'll come. They just don't know it yet." When I tucked the twins into bed that night, I looked out at the property glowing under the moonlight. The air smelled like sawdust and rain, like new beginnings. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Because I knew something my family didn't. They might have taken my father's inheritance, but they couldn't steal his lessons. He'd taught me that love was about inclusion. That family meant making space, not closing doors. And when I finally showed them space, they would never forget it. End of part 4, to be continued. Would you like me to continue with part 5? Revenge setup, 700-800 words, next, where Emily sets her plan into motion, inviting her family to her holiday event without revealing what's waiting for them. You said. Prompt 5, revenge planning. Continue the story from part 4. Write part 5 of 700-800 words. Show the hero's revenge plan step by step, gathering proof, exposing lies, setting traps. Keep suspense, the villain still feels in control. Increase the tension leading to the climax. High voltage sign planning must be consistent with the betrayal type in the title. ChatGPT said. Part 5 of 7, revenge planning, 700-800 words. Revenge, I learned, is mostly paperwork and patience. After the chest-clattering realization that my brother and mother had quietly stolen Dad's legacy, the romantic image of dramatic confrontations and yelling matches faded fast. Real-world payback is quieter, slower, surgical. You gather facts. You build a case. You make the world watch what they tried to hide. Step 1, collect the paper trail. I started with the lawyer's assistant, a tired woman named Helen who still had Dad's original folders stacked in a dusty cabinet. Helen was hesitant at first, afraid of family drama, but once she saw my face, something in her softened. She pulled photocopies, the original will, paper receipts, the trust agreement with Dad's signature. I scanned every page, made multiple backups, and asked Helen to notarize copies. Paper is stubborn, forged digital files can be tidy, but ink and initials are harder to fake. Helen agreed to testify if needed. That small promise gave me the first sliver of solace. Step 2, forensics and timestamps. Next, I hired a friend of a friend, an IT contractor who owed me a favor from a night shift saved by my quick thinking in the ER. He imaged Dad's drive, pulled server logs from the family cloud, and recovered versions of the will from months before the last modified timestamp Liam claimed. He found the edits, who copied what, when, and from which IP address. It was messy and miraculous, small clues, like Liam's office login time and the shared device that pinged the cloud at exactly the hour he'd been helping me. We saved screenshots, hashed files, printed forensic reports. Evidence is a language. Once you speak it clearly, people listen. Step 3, recordings and accidental truths. People lie in private. They admit things in careless moments. I combed my phone backups and found an old voicemail Mom talking to Liam, joking about making sure Em learns to be grateful. I had the lunch receipt from the day Liam helped me, dated and time-stamped. I planted a call to myself from a burner phone and let Mom angrily leave a voice message later that day, baiting her predictable tone. I never directly provoked her, I set conditions where her natural arrogance filled the gaps for me to record. The voicemail was thin, but with the lawyer's notarized copies and the IT reports, it stitched into a convincing pattern. Step 4, social engineering. Let their vanity do the work. If someone thinks they are winning, they behave recklessly. I needed them to think they were untouchable. So I did the opposite of hiding, I advertised. Not to them, exactly, more like I teased them. I posted innocuous updates about the grand opening of the property I'd restored, a community holiday celebration, in honor of Dad's love for big family dinners. I invited neighbors, a few local community leaders, and crucially an old family friend who still wrote for the local paper. Liam saw one of Claire's comments on my post and messaged her, "We need to be there. It's a great look for the family." That's the arrogance I needed. Step 5, the trap planned like a dinner party. I booked a caterer, rented extra chairs more than I needed and arranged the long table down the lawn, under the fairy lights. On a printed card at each place, I arranged a timeline of Dad's life, dates, photos, little captions about his values. I asked the caterer to prepare a toast for family unity. I told Helen to bring the notarized wool copies, and I arranged for my IT friend to be on standby with a laptop and projector disguised as a slideshow of memories. I invited Mom and the siblings personally, no guilt-tripping, only warmth. I made it irresistible, a night to remember Dad. Please join us, your presence would mean so much. Step 6, keep them confident, until the switch. They accepted. They RSVP'd with smug certainty. Liam even called to gloat, good to see you finally used that money right, Em. Don't worry, we'll help with the event. His voice oozed ownership. Mom posted a photo of a dress she'd save for just such an occasion. Claire texted about outfits. They were all in their element, hosts of the family narrative. They had no idea the script had changed. Step 7, safety nets and escalation paths. I didn't go in blind. I met with a pro bono attorney who advised me on civil options and the exact wording to use when presenting evidence publicly. We prepared a cease and desist template and a press statement if they ran, if they denied, if they tried to gaslight the neighbors. We had responses ready. Justice can be a slow machine, but it has teeth if fed properly. Throughout it all, the twins were my quiet center. I shielded them from the uglier details, but I let them help Ava painting place cards, Oliver stringing fairy lights. They believed in the magic of this place, not the politics behind it. That belief was the real motive I guarded. As the day of the family celebration approached, the house gleamed, the string lights hung like constellations, and the long wooden table waited set for more people than the old house had ever held. Liam still texted like a man who owned the room. Mom practiced her warm, forgiving smile in the mirror. Claire selected a dress that would photograph perfectly. They felt in control. I sat in the kitchen that night, files spread across the table, Helen's notarized copy at my elbow, the forensic report open on my laptop. I took a breath and whispered, not to myself but into the dark, when they stand to toast Dad, I'll show them exactly what he left and who stole it. And somewhere between the hammering of the last nail and the hum of the fairy lights, the tension turned electric. The trap was set. The audience was arriving. The curtain was about to rise. End of part 5 to be continued. You said. Prompt 6, Revenge Execution, Climax. Continue the story from part 5. Write part 6 of 7, 700-800 words. Deliver the climactic revenge, courtroom twist, family humiliation, financial collapse, public exposure. Make it dramatic, cinematic, and satisfying. Revenge must directly reflect the betrayal in the title. High voltage sign, this should feel like a movie climax. ChatGPT said. Part 6 of 7, Revenge Execution, Climax. 700-800 words. The night of the family celebration arrived like a scene from a film, fairy lights stitched across the yard, a long wooden table set with more plates than any of them could ever need, neighbors and a handful of local faces murmuring in the background. The air smelled of pine, roasted chestnuts, and something electric anticipation stitched with the cold bite of winter. They came wearing their certainty like armor. Mom in her forgiving smile, Liam with his easy swagger, Claire in a dress that said she owned the room. They moved through the crowd as if the whole world applauded. They did not know the projector behind the host table was already powered, the laptop feeding it wired to a forensic report, an inbox of incriminating emails, and a chain of voicemail clips Helen had preserved. As guests settled, I rose and tapped my glass. The chatter softened. My voice stayed steady, calm, the kind of calm that comes after a fight song has been written. Thank you all for coming, I said. Tonight is for Dad, his stories, his love, his lessons. I let that sit. Then I gestured. I want to show you something he left for all of us. Helen, hands steady in a shawl, handed the lawyer's folder to the caterer. Quiet theater. The IT guy linked the laptop. The projector flickered to life. The screen filled with photos, Dad laughing at a barbecue, little Ava asleep on his shoulder, a yellowed image of the original signed will. The crowd smiled, memories leaning forward in the light. Then the slide changed. A timeline appeared, dates, timestamps, server logs. The forensic report scrolled slowly, the document's metadata highlighted, original will signed, March 12. Last edited, December 4. User, L. Turner. A ripple went through the gathered faces, curiosity first, then a thin slice of ice. I watched Liam's fingers tighten on his glass. Helen stepped forward and pulled from her satchel the paper copies she'd notarized. She read aloud, voice calm, each sentence like a bell, this is the original will. This is its distribution. This is the signature your father made. She held the paper high so everyone could see Dad's steady handwriting. The screen switched to emails, Liam's messages instructing an outside notary, a scanned copy uploaded from a coffee shop computer, a casual helpful note he'd sent me the week he came by to organize files. The projector played the voicemail I'd kept, the one where Mom's tone betrayed a ruthless plan. Make sure she never finds out about the trust transfer, she'd said, laughing into the phone. Even Claire's laughter in the background of that recording was audible. A chair scraped. Liam's face flushed the color of drained wine. He lunged forward, the practiced charm cracking. This is manipulated. You doctored files. You, his voice shrilled like a badly tuned violin. The IT report flashed an IP map on the screen. The red dot traced from Liam's office to the cloud. Forensics had matched the edit signatures. The lawyer, stepping up now, recited legal language the way a priest recites scripture. Forgery and falsification of a will are criminal offenses. He folded the notarized copy and, with the spectators' astonished silence as drumbeat, presented it to the cluster of nearest guests. This is the original. The other documents submitted to the family drive are altered. Voices rose into 1,000 small combustions. Some neighbors whispered of betrayal. One of Mom's friends clutched her pearls. The local reporter I'd invited, discreet, professional, lifted her camera phone and went live, broadcasting the moment to a small but sudden swarm of online eyes. Within minutes the hashtag for the old family name trended quietly across town. Mom's smile collapsed like a house of cards. This is outrageous, she sputtered, then louder, to cover the emptiness of her hurt. How dare you accuse your family in front of everyone? The irony in that line landed like a stone. Liam tried to turn it into theatrics, gaslighting, denial, faux outrage, but the evidence was a steel trap: testimonies, Helen's notarization, the forensic printouts. Claire's phone buzzed with messages from friends whose faces had gone white after catching the live feed. A teenager at the edge of the crowd leaned over and whispered, "They're saying Liam forged the will." The whisper became a hum, and the hum became a public verdict before any courtroom ever opened. Then, like a cold, clinical punctuation, 2 officers in dark coats walked up the path. Quiet, official. The lawyer had called earlier that day to advise that filing a criminal complaint was an option. Helen had insisted she would go with me to the station. They arrived now not to arrest, no one cuffs in a movie without cause, but to take statements. Liam's bravado curdled into stunned silence. Mom clasped a hand to her mouth. Claire's mascara smudged. Liam's voice broke, then, when he found it, "You set us up." He pointed at me as if accusing the sky. "You invited people. You rehearsed this." His eyes pleaded for someone, anyone, to save him. The reporter, sensing the moment, asked him a quiet question: "Did you ever forge Dad's signature?" The pause that followed was the sound of everything unraveling. The neighbors leaned in. The live stream blossomed with comments: shock, sympathy for the kids, anger. What followed was messy and perfect. Liam stuttered through denials until his voice thinned into a whisper. The lawyer placed civil papers on the table, an initial notice of intent to file suit. Helen signed an affidavit. The police took statements. The local reporter filed a story that night. Her headline was clinical and brutal: family heirloom, family fracture, local matriarch's will under question. In the space of one evening, the family narrative shifted. The people who had thought themselves untouchable found their faces refracted in a harsher light. The crowd that had come for cocoa and memory watched the family's private rot spill into public air. Through it all, the twins sat on my lap, small and composed, their hands warm in mine. Ava whispered, "Is Grandpa proud, Mommy?" I looked at my father's photo perched by the projector, his eyes calm, his smile steady, and I nodded. "He would be," I said. Liam went pale. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Claire's shoulders sagged as the realization settled: they had stolen more than money, they'd stolen the story that shaped them. The very narrative they used to justify exclusion was being cut out from under them. As the officers finished taking statements and the guests filed away in soft, stunned groups, I stepped to the edge of the lit lawn and breathed the cold air in deep. The projector's glow painted everyone in truth's harsh light. The revenge had landed not as a scream, but as an unveiling. They had said there was no room for my kids. Now the whole town had seen the space I'd made, full of proof, full of witnesses, and full of people who would not let this slip back into polite silence. I didn't gloat. I watched instead as the family I'd known dissolved into consequences. The climax had gone beyond humiliation, it had become accountability. And in that quiet, cinematic halo of fairy lights and falling snow, I felt something like justice settle into my bones. Tonight, the curtain had fallen on their story. The next act, the aftermath, was theirs to endure. You said. Prompt 7: Aftermath and Poetic Justice. Continue the story from Part 6. Write Part 7 of 7, 700-800 words. Show the aftermath: villain destroyed, hero free, respected, or stronger. End with a goosebump poetic justice line. Speak directly to viewers, ask if they've faced betrayal, invite comments, and encourage subscribing. High voltage sign: closure must stay consistent with the